Welcome to If the Public Only Knew, the show that pulls back the curtain on what it really takes to build and lead a business. Host Gary Cinderbrandt sits down with some of today's most dynamic CEOs, founders, and leaders to dig into their origin stories, hard-earned lessons, and the missteps that nearly derailed it all. These are unfiltered, no-hype conversations designed to inspire, challenge, and fuel your own journey. Now here's your host, Gary Cinderbrandt.
Welcome back to If the Public Only Knew. I'm your host, Gary Cinderbrandt. Our guest today is Derek Fredrickson. Derek basically, I'd say, evolved into an idea about a concept around chief operating officers, which are usually the number two people at most companies. And I think rightfully so, based on the experiences that you've had, you realized that most founders, most people that invent a business or want to scale their business are much more focused on the creative side, the sales side, the customer service side. And the last thing in the world they want to focus on is hiring, HR, payroll, and all the rest of it. And your company, your fractional COO company, apparently does that and does that quite well. Derek, how did you end up in this business?
Yeah, great question. Great way to start. And thank you, Gary, for having me on. I've been doing fractional COO work for the better part of 17 years. I first started off actually working with my wife, joining her business, not knowing what a fractional COO was or a second in command, as like you described it, number two. But we started to work together and allowed her as the visionary, as the CEO, to focus on the things that the visionary loves to focus on, the big vision, the bigger future, the big idea. And I was able to step in and essentially run the business, run the operations, look over the team, handle the day-to-day, but not just in the area of operations, looking at marketing, looking at sales, looking at finance, both kind of strategy as well as the tactical. And I really enjoyed that second in command role and continued to evolve doing fractional COO work with other clients as well. And then recently launched the COO Solution. And basically, what we do and how we help entrepreneurs is we get them out of the day-to-day. They usually in the beginning, they start something and they're the jack of all trades, right? They're doing the marketing, they're doing the sales, they're doing the bookkeeping, maybe even building their website. But at a certain point, they know if they want to grow and to eventually scale, they need team, they need process, they need some structure. And usually they get to a point where they realize they can't do it all on their own, and they start to rely on others and bringing in a team and starting to organize the business so it's not necessarily built on toothpicks and band-aids, but it's built on something that can scale, a foundation. And that's where we step in, is to provide that structure, provide that process, provide that freedom for the entrepreneur to really then be able to focus on the next level that they want to focus on, but with the confidence and trust that somebody as a second command is actually running the business, running the operations, looking over the team, doing the hiring. And that's how you scale a company, is letting the founder be the visionary that they want to be, focusing on the next big idea, and then having the structures and the team and the processes in place to support that growth as it continues to scale.
Yeah, I commend you for identifying that niche. You're probably familiar with several studies that have been done around how founders with great ideas end up destroying companies because they're not CEOs or COOs.
Yeah.
They're smart about what they build, but they can't get it out the door.
Yeah. It's the expression, the role of the entrepreneur is to make it up, right?
Yeah.
They have the idea. The role of a COO, a second in command, is we make it real, we make it happen. And then with the team and the process and the structure and the systems, we make it recur, right? Right people, right seats, a well-oiled machine, this foundation. But oftentimes without this glue in the middle, the second in command, you've got the entrepreneur who's making up the idea or ideas, and they may have some team that are looking to just get stuff done, check the boxes, dot the I's, cross the T's, but there's usually a really big gap from idea into a well-oiled machine, and that's where we step in to make that happen and to make that real.
Fascinating. It's fascinating. So I thought what might be interesting to do is to kind of walk you through, I'd say asking for a friend, but frankly, I'm asking for myself.
Yeah.
There's a situation that has been in place in the financial services world, basically since Wall Street started, which is that in any wealth manager's book, there basically are two camps. Let's call one the green camp. Let's call one the yellow camp. The green camp are people that you really align with on more levels than just a provider. They become close friends over time, almost family. You know everything about them. They know everything about you. You're always encouraged when you talk to them. It feels wonderful. They trust you. You trust them. The relationship is structured with common interests, empathy, cultural alignments, and anything else you can think of. Jung would call it archetypes, that you share a lot of similarities. Now, not everyone on that side in that green box, let's say, has a lot of money. If the average wealth advisor right now of my vintage is running, let's say, $500 million, which would not be unusual, in that green box, they're going to have clients that have multi-million dollar accounts, 20, 30, $40 million accounts. But they also may have clients that only have $300,000 or $400,000 who aren't that productive, but they love them. They're great. They get other things from them. So there's a quality and a quantity that we have to look at in the relationship. Then in the yellow box, we could have people that have a lot of money, but you just never quite get along with them. Now, the problem is that for most advisors, that always happens in arrears. You figure it out as time goes on that you've developed strong connections with one segment, not so strong connections with the other. And it breaks down to about 50-50. Although in the green box, you're getting about 90% of your revenue from the people you really care about. In the yellow box, when they pick up a hole in or you talk to them, you feel different. It's not who you really present yourself to be or how you're known otherwise. So my background in wealth management, I kind of went my own way early, and it turned out to be the right way to go. And I ended up at Merrill Lynch creating a training program which ran for 12 years while I was managing other people's money, which focused on going out and developing the right book and moving people in that yellow box away to other clients. So then it struck me a while back, what if we could come up with a way to identify the green box people first? And so how would I do that? And through the consulting work I now do with very senior advisors, this phenomenon just repeated and repeated. So I started to play around a little bit with AI, with some coding tools, and several months later, I built an app. The name of the app is Rainmaker. It's rainmaker.io. If you go up there, you'll see a placeholder, but it's up and running. And it's going through validation testing right now in conjunction with Duke University's capstone program, as well as a couple of major firms. And the product essentially allows you to psychologically evaluate yourself as a financial advisor through 20 questions. And we use kind of a behavioral finance bias, a little bit of Jungian stuff, a little MBTI, things like that. It then allows you to identify your client preferences, the markets you like to work in, and then it takes your LinkedIn profile and does a deep social search using Perplexity to figure out everything it can about you as the advisor. Then it says, okay, we can go one of two ways. You can put in a particular prospect you're interested in for us to research, or you can put in basically a geographical ring fence and time and service, level of business, and we'll go out find these people for you. And it goes out and using something called application program interfaces or APIs, it goes out and it starts to hunt up prospects, and it'll do 25 at a time.
Wow.
We find their email using Hunter.io. We find the prospect using another AI called Apollo. And then you hit research and it does a deep dive on that individual. So whatever it can find out about you, it's going to find out. And if there's stuff on the web, it figures it out. It then says, okay, based on your personality characteristics as an advisor and what we know about this person, you've got a 77% alignment. And here's why. Then we line them up side by side. Then it recommends the best approach to take if you want to approach this person, because you don't call and say, hey, I work at UBS or Merrill Lynch. Basically, you say, hey, I note you're really involved in the Sacramento Historical Society. I've always been fascinated with what happens in Northern California. How can I get involved? Now, to me, any long-term relationship has to have better underpinnings than just a buyer and a provider. So it aligns it, and then it will create one of three email outreaches: a LinkedIn connection, a LinkedIn email, or a regular email. They're not salesy, they're not spammy, but it gives you, as the advisor, about a 40% chance of getting a response
Oh my
versus
gosh.
2 to 3%
Right.
of that market. Now, the market I'm attempting to disrupt initially is a $200 million spend market where advisors, 300,000 advisors, buy lead lists with
Mm-hmm.
names on them,
Mm-hmm.
and 95% fail rate, and everybody knows it, but that's the only thing there. So the tool I invented takes a completely different approach. We did a prior art search with our lawyers. Um, no prior art exists. We have 102 separate patent claims. And it's about to go. I've been holding off investors, but it's about to get real, and I need to build a team. Right now, it's me.
Yeah.
I have three graduate students that help me at Duke and two very senior full stack software engineers. Full stack means they can build everything
Mm-hmm.
from the user interface all the way back down
Yeah.
to the back end. But the app is running and it's producing, and the advisors that are testing it basically say, when can I get it? Can you add this? Can you add that? We're going to go after one vertical initially, but there's 4 or 5 adjacent verticals, literally each one with hundreds of millions of dollars being spent
Mm-hmm.
where this app can disrupt. So if
Wow.
I'm going to build a team and I'm going to raise some money and I got to build this thing out, I know I'm interested. I think my audience would also be interested. What do I do next? Let's assume I've got a bank balance.
Yeah.
I've got some volunteers. I've got some advisors. I haven't hired anybody yet.
Mm-hmm.
What do I do next?
Yeah. It's a great story, Gary. I love the context, not only for the discussion, but also what you've accomplished and put together. It's quite remarkable. It's some pretty deep, intelligent based prospecting, but also on just to touch on this a bit on the fundamentals of, who is your ideal client, right? And not necessarily wanting to work with everybody that's got the check, but working with the right people. So like you say, you feel aligned, you feel like, you don't want heart sink clients, the clients that you work with where you feel like kind of deflated after the conversation. You want clients that lift you up as you feel like you are lifting them up. So I think what you're doing
Absolutely. Yeah,
is
it,
great,
it works
leveraging
better.
tech.
It works better for everybody. To give you some legitimate, I just shared my screen. That's the front
Yeah.
page, if you can
Wow.
see it.
Yeah.
And it's running.
That's great.
And it's funny because the people that are helping me, the senior engineers, I don't know half the jargon, but they're looking at this going, well, who helped you build this? I said, I did it on my own.
Yeah. That's
That's a
amazing.
whole other topic,
Yeah,
using coding
exactly.
tools and
Yeah.
patience, but you know, and debugging it is playing whack-a-mole. So
Yeah.
this thing is real. I'm going to launch it. I can sell it all day long. I can enhance it, but I have no interest in running a checkbook,
Yeah.
hiring, HR, all that stuff. For me, I would be mediocre at best.
Yeah. I think it's a great question. And the way that I would look at it, if we're using your idea, soon to be successful business launch as a test here, if you will, first and foremost is the ability to have the clarity that you can't do it alone. Meaning, if you've got the goal and you've got the vision, and you know in your heart and in your mind that it's going to be successful, but you can't be the only one to get it there, that's the kind of mindset shift that's really the most important. Because in my experience, the alternative is sometimes people, entrepreneurs in your situation, they take it on. I'm going to go figure out how to market. I'm going to go figure out how to sell it. I'm going to figure out all of the bits and pieces that need to go into place, from the operational delivery of the app and the client service and features and everything else. And then there's the finance component. I'm doing my bookkeeping, I'm doing my revenue, I'm looking at my projections. And I think for some entrepreneurs, they kind of take it all on because they feel like they can be the jack of all trades. But the right entrepreneurs are the ones that say, I know I can't do this alone. I'm going to need somebody or some buddies to help me move this to the next phase. So first, it's a mindset shift of getting clear that that's what's the recipe to scale any business, whether it's an app, service-based, brick and mortar, that you can't do it alone. You need it with team. The other thing to keep in mind is that in addition to team, is that if you bring the people in, there's got to be some structure of how you're doing what you're doing. This is what we do as COOs. We are focused just as much on what you're doing, in this case, scaling and selling your app, but also just as much on how are we doing this? How are we doing the business that we're doing so that in the area of marketing, we're generating leads and interest and visibility and awareness. In the area of sales, we're hitting metrics and getting conversions and getting good revenue targets. Operations, we're delivering a solid product. We're getting good customer reviews. We're doing everything to make sure our service, our product is top notch. And then on the finance piece, making sure we've got finance systems and processes, because when you get the people on board, they're going to need some sort of foundation to work from that allows them to do what they need to do and do it efficiently and effectively. Efficiently, meaning they can get it done quickly, and effectively, meaning they get it done at a higher level. So they feel more empowered, they feel more accountable. I can own this, I can take responsibility for what my role is in the bigger vision of what you want to scale with your business. I often describe it as a bus, right? Gary is the driver of the bus. The bus is your app, and you have the map, you know where you're going, and that's your vision. That's the big idea. But you've got a bunch of seats on your bus that are going to need to be filled with the right people in the right seats that are going to help you get there. And they know their part to help you get there. And oftentimes entrepreneurs, we're the Lone Ranger. We're the one-man show.
Yeah.
We're doing it all. And oftentimes we have to look around and say, I need some help in finance. I need some help in operations and getting the right people in the right seats. And having somebody as like a COO that knows how to hire, that knows how to train people on board, cultivate the right kind of culture of accountability in an organization so everybody's rowing in the same direction. That's what we do. But first and foremost, to answer your question, is having the mindset to know that if you want to scale, you need support, you need a team, you need to understand what your zone of genius is and maybe what your zone of genius is not. And we use assessments to understand strengths and profiling and everything else, and realizing, yes, I need a fractional CFO to own my finance box. I need somebody that's going to be a marketing manager that can really amplify the visibility and get this out in a bigger way. I need to make sure I've got a stellar product management team that's delivering a really good service. And so there's people out there, we just need to find the right way to bring them in and not have it all be on the burden of Gary having to do basically an HR role as opposed to continuing to focus on the vision. That's part of how it works. Yeah.
So it seems, and first of all, for your things you named as first and foremost, I am completely there. In fact, that's the thing right now that's preventing me from launching. I mean, I'm playing around with cap table modeling. I'm a C Corp. I'm playing around with how we're going to do stock, whether I want to raise using what's called a safe round, which is a simple agreement of future equity, versus a priced round, because the pre-money pricing I'm seeing, the suggestions and the comparables, to me, they just seem really high, especially
Yeah.
with what I've built in comparison to what people are actually putting money into.
Yeah.
Because this is not an AI tech play. This uses certain external AI data sets, LLMs, and groups it together in a highly personal way.
Yeah.
One of my advisors is a professor of finance and fintech at Duke University. So there's nothing he doesn't know about algorithms and how things work. And he looks at this and he's like, let's go, let's launch. I'm there.
Yeah.
So I know there's something here. I mean, do you work and help with cap table guidance? Do you help with pricing on financing? How deep in the weeds do you get?
Yeah, it's a great question. It depends. And I'll just say as an example for you with what you're doing, and I think your audience can resonate with this as well, right? As an entrepreneur, as a visionary, there's so many things you could do. Like you could do all of those things you just listed. But in reality, and this is a little bit of a reality check, what are the things that you actually should be doing? And that is a big distinction between what you could be doing and what you should be doing. And this is not my expression, but I use it often because I love the way that it's phrased and positioned. For companies that are looking to scale, the question that they should be asking is who, not how. Rather than how could I do this? How do I build this? How do I do all of these things that need to happen? Who can I bring in as the resource that solves the how, right? You understand what I mean between
I do, exactly. Yeah,
between the two? And
I'm
and
aligning those things in my mind as you're saying. I'm saying yes, yes.
yes,
Okay, I got
exactly.
that. Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah. And so part of what we do is we provide the how, but also we provide the right who's, right? Finding the right people in the right seats across the organization where the need is currently, but also where the need will be, like kind of hiring for the future, knowing that, in your case, you're looking to grow and scale and tap into a huge market. The other thing that we do when we work with entrepreneurs and organizations is that I always say we work vertically and horizontally. Vertically, first and foremost, we work with the visionary, the entrepreneur, to make sure that they're feeling supported, that they are not feeling like they're drowning in the weeds, really clarifying what are the things that you should be doing versus the things that you could be doing, and being very clear on what is your zone of genius. What is the thing that probably moves the needle 80% of the time in the business? And if you're not spending that time in those categories, what are the things that are draining your time, that are getting into the weeds, that are taking up your day to day? And often not just your time, but maybe your energy, because it's not the thing that you're best suited at. And somebody could be doing that better. So we kind of support the visionary to be the visionary, strategically to be in that box. But then also we work tactically at the team level to not necessarily do all of the implementation, but we create the culture. What I like to say is we lead and manage and hold accountable your people, your plans, your projects, and your processes so that the business can scale. So we kind of hold that vision together in the execution layer with the team and the process so that we're all moving forward towards that future vision. In addition, we go horizontal, right? I often look at every business in a very simple 4-box quadrant: marketing, sales, operations, finance. And we're looking at all three. A COO is that air traffic controller. They are the one that are looking at all of the things that are happening to ensure we're making progress. Projects are getting initiated and completed. We're hitting targets using KPIs and metrics and everything else. But very holistically looking at the sole purpose of marketing is to generate qualified leads to an extent. The sole purpose of sales is to convert said qualified leads into paying clients and customers. Operations is to deliver on the thing that you just sold so that you can retain and keep good clients and paying customers. And finance is the output of doing really, really good marketing, sales, operations. And then you can take that and invest that back into scale. So they look at all of those different functions in that way, both horizontally and kind of vertically from a strategic and tactical level.
So hypothetically, the patents that we filed, the patent claims that we filed, are not completely attached to a single vertical, which is prospecting and financial services. Basically, the patent, the way it's written, covers any analysis that would assist a professional in identifying and contacting an initial prospect. So it basically can spread over to consulting work. It can spread over to anything where relationships are involved. The initial market we're going to go after is $200 million. There's a secondary market out there that's very closely aligned, almost adjacent, in financial advisor recruiting. When one financial advisor, a senior financial advisor, moves from, let's say, UBS to Morgan Stanley, if a recruiter facilitates that move, that recruiter gets paid a fee by Morgan Stanley. If that advisor is producing $3 million at the time to go over, they'll receive a fee of a couple $100,000 from the firm to bring them over. It's like an agent pay.
Yeah.
The problem is that if you bring the wrong advisor into your office and they're not aligned with the rest of the office, it can destroy your office as a manager. And that's the greatest fear. That's an $800 million market in fees that are spent. And when I spoke with the director of recruiting at a major firm, her only comment was, what are the compliance risks? I said, we use only public data. The next one was, when do I get it? So there's other verticals that can be developed here. So would each of those verticals be a separate business, separate team, separate operational strategy? Because the other question I get right now, especially from my legal guys, is, are we building it to scale or building it to sell? Because once you get out there, you're going to have somebody, Salesforce might buy just to get rid of you. So you're not competing with them. It is that disruptive. So walk me through, if my intent were to be, I want to build verticals and sell them one at a time, versus I want to really focus on this one vertical and wring every dollar I can out of it and then move on. So one's expansive and one is kind of a sequential series of sales.
So I'm going to answer your question by asking a question, because I like asking this question of entrepreneurs that are like, I want to do this, but I could also do that, right? I want to go in this direction. I have a new revenue stream. Great. Wonderful. Gary, what's your intention? And what I mean by that question is, what's your objective? Let's start with the future end state in mind. What do you want this to look like, where it's at a point where, and we could talk about building it to sell, that's one thing. But what is your intention? Is your intention to go vertical and scale and get this to be the top in that particular niche? Or is that you want to diversify? Or maybe you're just not sure yet because you're kind of contemplating both. But I always say, like, what's your intention? What's the objective at a future state? Almost plant your seed at a point in time where you think that could be the reality. And what would you want that to be? What does it mean for you, Gary, in terms of what you want as the result? Because we could do
That's a great question.
any one of those or a combination of them, but I always go back to, what do you want?
I want to use the initial vertical to completely optimize it to the nth degree. I also have massive amounts of training data that I've accumulated over time, consulting phone calls, in-person experiences, just everything soup to nuts, different presentations on video, all of which are currently sitting in a Docker's container with 42 gigabytes of data, which I'm going to look to integrate
Mm,
into this app. So if it comes up and it says, look, here's what you're strong at personality
yeah,
wise, here are things you need to work on, click the link, and all of a sudden you've got a training video popping up or
yeah,
an avatar popping up. And that model is portable.
hmm,
So I want to get it optimized first. I don't want to spread too thin initially, get it completely optimized first. And then once that's done, uh,
that's it.
and I can flip it, great. I'll move
Right.
on to the next one.
Exactly. Yeah. And the reason why I asked that question is, you knew the answer almost to kind of just, I want to optimize this first. And that was what I was thinking, but I wanted it always to come from the visionary because in that model, and I agree, optimizing it, if you get that vertical to be such a rock solid app with it just like running like clockwork, it's working, all the metrics are in place, it's running like a well-oiled machine. I often say when scaling businesses, you can't scale complexity, but you can scale simplicity. And if you can simplify the business model, the revenue generation, the team structure, the process, everything else, you're at a point then which you can decide, well, maybe I'm open to sale. Maybe at this point, I'm open to another vertical. But before we get to that point, let's get it to a place where it's just as good as it can ever be to an extent. I'm kind of, generalizing, but you get the idea. Then we can look at other options because that might be in 6 months, it could be 6 years. I have no idea of the time frame, but your perception of what you actually would want after that may be different from where you are right now because now it's still in its beginning stages. So in 2 years' time, let's say it is at that optimized state, and you may think at this point in time that the options would be best to then go in other verticals, but somebody could come in and say, like, we actually really love your application, we'd like to buy it, and you might be open to that check, right? So there's a lot of things we may not know that are uncertain, but let's focus on the scale, let's focus on the simplicity. And then if it gets to a point, I often say this, if you get a business that is at a point that it is so ready to sell, but as the owner and the founder is maybe you're disinvolved in the day to day. You're really more of like an executive CEO. You're not involved in all of the things that need to happen. Maybe you actually don't need to sell. You're just not involved in the business from the perspective where you were in the beginning, where you're bootstrapping all of these things on your own. And the option is there to sell, but maybe it doesn't need to be a decision that you say yes to because you've got a really good thing that you want to continue to hold on to.
It's what you're saying. As a financial advisor, people think our job is to sell product to customers. That's the last thing on my mind when I work.
Yeah.
What I try and figure out is what end state does this client need to get to? What's the
Hmm.
outcome need? And that's what I
Hmm.
trained.
Yeah.
Basically, I didn't sell investments, I sold outcomes.
Yeah.
And tell me where you want to be, when you want to get there. Show me what you're doing currently. And we're going to figure out what of what you're doing is appropriate, what's inappropriate. We'll make the changes accordingly.
Hmm.
And that built my book of business. I never lost a client. Um, I fired a couple, but I didn't
Yeah.
lose them. So I
Yeah.
completely understand and agree with what you're saying. And as someone that has been sold to as a
Hmm.
financial advisor, because we have investment companies that come in, mutual fund companies, separately managed accounts, everybody's got this great idea. You become pretty circumspect because
Yeah.
if you buy that noise and move it into a client account, if it doesn't work, whoever sold that idea to you isn't going to be there to back you up. You got to
Yeah.
make sure you're good. So I
Yeah.
completely understand and agree with your approach. It really aligns with mine.
Yeah.
This is fascinating. I didn't,
Mhm.
first of all, I'd heard of like fractional COOs. I was
Hmm.
actually looking at a fractional CTO,
Mm.
but I rapidly realized that if my underlying technologies is an expression of what I feel as the entrepreneur would be most appropriate
Hmm.
for people in a profession I've been with for 4 decades, I don't know that I want somebody that's only looking at this occasionally and doesn't understand the cultural imperatives of what we built and how
Yeah.
meaningful that can be. But from a COO perspective, because we're dealing with ones and zeros
Yeah.
and we're dealing with binary stuff, it's either right or it's wrong. That makes all the sense in the world. I love
Yeah.
your business model. I really do. I
Yeah.
think it's phenomenal.
Well, thank you. I mean, this is that's why, call it a COO, call it a second in command. Integrator is often commonly used, but I like, the second in command, especially, in the way that we do what we provide. And I can only speak for how we do things here at the COO Solution. My number one value is trust. And so everything that we do in terms of our client relationships, the collaboration, the partnership, that's why I call it a partnership, right? It's not a matchmaking service. Like you are investing in strategic leadership, change and direction in your company. And so we are invested heavily, myself and the fractional COOs that we work with, in order to really partner with the COO. If you ever, the movie The Godfather,
Oh yeah.
maybe. Yeah, yeah. So, the consigliere is
Yeah.
kind of like that COO. They're their voice of reason, but they're also the ones that kind of make change happen, but they're also invested, but they'll also challenge, right? Because they're there to kind of, support the entrepreneur, but have somebody that they can lean on, that they can trust and say, hey, Derek, I'm thinking about doing this. I'm not quite sure. The team is mobilized to just like dot the I's, cross the T's, and make stuff happen, right? Those are the doers, but also oftentimes you need that strategic guidance and support and advisor to really help you in the process of scaling and building that vision and knowing where, Gary, this is not something that you should be kind of focused on because that's not your zone of genius. Let me come in and make that happen for you because we are the doers. We are the implementers. We're wired. We take assessments. We love to finish things that entrepreneurs start, right? Your idea is to start. We are the ones to finish and to make that happen all the way through. And I'll just say one more thing about your market with financial advisors, which I completely and wholeheartedly agree. And just hearing the way you speak about it makes complete sense because it's relationship based. Yes, there's results and what's your objective and what do you want to achieve is important, but making sure that you're really invested in the relationship and providing that as a cornerstone of how you do what you do because I've heard this expression before, which I love, like, people love to buy, but they hate to be sold. And if you're selling to people that maybe are in your yellow camp, right, it's not going to be a fit for them. And it's not going to be a fit for you. But if you're having people buy from the green camp because you're aligned, they're aligned, and it's a win-win, that's how you can really, make good business. So,
So I think you and I probably have some follow-up conversations to do. And I have to tell you, this is probably the most unusual podcast I've done because, as I said before, one of my mentors early on said, when the student is ready, the teacher shall appear. And sometimes that's yourself,
mm,
but other times it's recognizing, what's preventing me from basically kicking this thing out the door.
yeah,
And I get to the
yeah,
point where I'm like, okay, I can't mess around with it anymore. It's working the way I want. I don't want to break the code.
yeah,
I've got the right advisors gathering. So what's my next move? So
yeah.
last question, and I'll let you go. Hypothetically speaking, I come to you in several months and I say, okay, I've raised a couple of $1 million. I've got a great advisory team. I've got 6 conferences I want to go to next year to present this. There's a possibility I can white label it to major firms, which is a
Mm.
whole other vertical, a whole other
A
thing to
whole other
do.
vertical. Yeah, you're already going to the other verticals
Oh
again. I
no,
love
I mean, like this would be appropriate by way of example for a big registered investment advisory firm who takes in a large pool of clients and then assigns an advisor. You can just reverse it,
it. Hmm.
profile the client, match them with an advisor. So there's a lot of things that can be done here. Um, I want to go after my former colleagues first in wealth management. So if I showed up in that realm, am I ready to hire your firm at that point?
I would say yes. As soon as you're ready to, I mean, it depends for you because it sounds like you've got, if I can be direct in a way,
Sure.
there's a little bit of like the get ready to get ready, right? And I understand there's things that need to happen, there are things that are pending and everything else. But once you make the decision that this is going live and I'm putting this out there and I am going to be all 110% to make that happen, when that point is realized and when things start to mobilize and when you start to realize that you need team, structure, strategy, support, that's when you bring in a fractional COO. Because at that point, you're just on the cusp, but that might be next month, that might be next quarter, that might be next year. And so it's really the commitment level of the entrepreneur. Like, I'm going to go all in and I know I can't do it alone. I need that second in command support so that when I'm starting to really run this business, you're not running in the business, you have somebody running the business for you. And I often say, because that it's not about taking control of your business, it's actually giving you control back in the way that you want to be in your business, being the visionary. I mean, you've got events you want to speak to, you've got partnerships, you've got relationships. That's what a visionary should be doing. That's where they make 80% of the money, not in the running of the day-to-day, dealing with team issues and firefighting problems and dealing with other issues that pop up here and there. You need somebody to be the gatekeeper that's running the ship while you're there in the front of the bus, right? Going back to that analogy, driving along to that future vision. So when that point is ready, whenever that is, when it sounds like it should be soon,
It's going to
then
be
let's
soon.
chat. Yeah.
I think a year or two ago, if we looked at the number of people that could actually take an idea and create the code and the application to get it commercially viable, that number was, let's just call it X.
Yeah.
With the tools that are out there now, that is like X to the third power.
Yeah.
And you don't need a bunch of people or a bunch of really smart code writers to build these things anymore. And I do see companies that are popping up with one and two entrepreneurs who have built some really clever algorithms using
Yeah.
AI that have real world applications. And one fellow in particular, I'm thinking about, he sold his first algorithm for, I think for $40 million.
Jeez. Wow.
And it was a trading algorithm, and he's building it out as a business.
Hmm.
He's a brilliant coder,
Yeah.
and he's trying to do it all himself. So he's the typical guy that you might see. I might refer him as well
Yeah.
because
I
I
mean,
think guys like that are going to need help, just like me.
yeah,
Um,
the innovators, the creators, the big idea thinkers, that's an entrepreneur. And
you're in the
oftentimes,
right place at the right time because AI cannot do what you do.
and oftentimes they are not the ones to run the business.
No,
They're
I don't
there
want
to
to run this
start it,
thing.
to initiate it, to make it what it is. But the running of the business, I mean, if you look at
No,
some of the biggest businesses, look at Microsoft, right? That was a duo, visionary and a second in command. McDonald's, Disney, same sort of thing. There was always that second in command that is more backstage. They're not necessarily front stage. They're running the business. They are leading and managing and holding accountable the operational aspects of marketing, sales, operations, and finance, while the visionary is out there visioning the business, scaling the business, growing the business. And also at the end of the day, that's what lights you up. And
yeah,
so you could do that. You could manage the team. You could deal with the issues. You could handle the operations, but that's costing your business money when you're stepping back into the backstage aspect as opposed to staying more front stage as the visionary.
could not agree more.
Yeah.
Derek, this
Well,
has been fascinating. And it's
thank
almost
you.
been, like a consultation and a psychological counseling session at the same
Yeah.
time. I think your business model is spot on. I think you've got more ahead of you than you can possibly imagine, especially I don't think I'm the only guy out there that has cooked up an innovative idea that wants to bring it to market, but doesn't quite know how to build a team behind him. And I think
Yeah.
you're filling a great niche at a great time. How do
Well, thank
people
you.
find you if they want to learn more about what you're doing?
Yeah, yeah, sure. The company is called the COO Solution. We're at the COOsolution.com. And actually, if somebody is watching or listening and thinking, maybe it is now the time that I should think about bringing on a COO, we have a free quiz assessment on the website that somebody can take that can help them understand is now maybe the time to think about bringing on a fractional COO in those areas of marketing, sales, operations, and finance. So that's at the website.
And the website address once again is?
The COOsolution.com.
I can't imagine that wasn't taken already. I love it.
I was very happy when I found it.
We've been chatting with Derek Fredrickson, founder, visionary, entrepreneur, the COO Solution.com. And I will tell you folks, this has been unusual for me. given a lot more information. I was ready to let out on the app that I'm going to be launching. And hopefully by the time you guys see this, we'll be
there you
well
go.
underway. And Derek and you and I are going to be talking about other things as well. Thank you
Good.
so much for joining me today. This has really been educational. It's been terrific.
Thank you, Gary. I appreciated it.
We'll talk to you again real soon. Take care.
All right.
Thanks for tuning in to If the Public Only Knew. Don't forget to follow the show and share it with anyone who's ready for the real raw stories behind the business successes. Join Gary next time for another powerful conversation that will leave you inspired and ready to take action.